Back when I was a kid, around the age of 12, this story unfolded about 20 years ago. Halloween, a cherished holiday for me, was filled with excitement as I could hang out with my friends, don amusing costumes, and embark on a candy-gathering adventure. In this particular year, my buddy Kyle was joining me for trick-or-treating, and afterward he planned to spend the night at my house. I lived with my mom and older sister, who happened to be at her best friend's place that night. Kyle and I set off for trick-or-treating around 5 p.m. Our neighborhood was quite typical, with numerous houses lining the streets in a large residential area. Although our street was generally quiet, it attracted many neighborhood kids during Halloween. We explored all the houses on my street and the adjacent one, spending hours collecting candy until our bags could hold no more. It was around 8 p.m. when we decided to head back to my house. Throughout our trick-or-treating adventure, everything seemed normal, with many other kids enjoying the festivities. Upon returning home, Kyle and I eagerly sorted through our candy haul. Since I didn't have school the next day, we planned to stay up late playing video games, likely on the PlayStation 2 or the popular console of that era. However, our plans took an unexpected turn when the doorbell rang just after 10 p.m. Although we assumed it was a late trick-or-treater, the time and the absence of a lit front light raised suspicions. Peeking through the living room curtains, Kyle and I spotted a grown man standing at the front door. He had no costume, and I didn't recognize him as a neighbor or anyone I knew. Feeling uneasy, we closed the curtains, unsure of what to do. Ignoring the doorbell, we continued with our evening. After a second ring, the house fell silent, and we assumed the man had left. Feeling a bit at ease, we were about to resume our video game session when Kyle suggested checking the window to make sure the man was gone. I agreed and cautiously approached the window, only to discover the man right outside. He locked eyes with me before I quickly closed the curtains. Terrified, Kyle and I sprinted upstairs to my bedroom, locking the door behind us. We discussed the situation when suddenly, the sound of breaking glass echoed from downstairs. Panic set in as we ran to my mom's bedroom, waking her up to explain the alarming events. She called the police, and we huddled in the closet, fearing the intruder's presence. The minutes dragged on as we anxiously awaited the police. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, they arrived and searched the house. The intruder had vanished, leaving behind a broken front window and a disheveled living room. Though some items were missing, we were relieved that the threat was gone. The night remained tense, but thankfully, the intruder never returned. That Halloween night became etched in my memory as the most frightening one I've ever experienced. Last October, during the Halloween season, an unsettling incident unfolded in my life. My younger sister and I found ourselves alone at home, as our parents had headed out to a Halloween gathering. Their peculiar request was for us to distribute candies to the trick-or-treaters. This disappointed both my sister and me, as we had made plans to join some friends for trick-or-treating. Despite our protests, our parents insisted that we were too old for traditional Halloween activities. Instead, they suggested inviting our friends over to our house to hang out. Disappointingly, my friends declined the invitation, as they were determined to stick to their trick-or-treating plans. Consequently, I was left alone with my sister, tasked with handing out candy. As the night progressed, a stream of costumed visitors came to our door, and by 10, almost all the candy had been distributed. My sister and I decided to indulge in the remaining treats. Seated on the couch, engrossed in a scary movie, we heard an unexpected knock on the door. Curious and a bit annoyed at the late-night disturbance, I got up to investigate. Peering through the peephole, I spotted a mysterious figure on our front porch. The man wore a black hoodie with the hood drawn over his head, obscuring his face. The only discernible detail was a beard and dry, crusty lips. It was evident that he wasn't a trick-or-treater. He was far too old and lacked a costume. Alarms rang in my head as I observed his thin frame and the suspicious way his hands were tucked into the front pocket of his hoodie. Ignoring any potential danger, I yelled through the door that we were out of candy. To my surprise, a creepy smile spread across his face. Unsettled, my little sister asked if I was alone, gripping her cell phone discreetly. The man, in a mocking tone, questioned our solitude. Sensing danger, I threatened to call the police, and his smile faded into a look of fury. Fortunately, he left without further incident. Though relieved, my sister and I remained paranoid and decided against involving the police. Little did we know, the next day brought grim news. An elderly woman living a few houses down from us had been brutally murdered. She was found on her front porch, covered in blood, with multiple stab wounds to her chest and neck. Reflecting on the incident, my sister and I realized the man we had encountered might be linked to the heinous crime. When we shared our suspicions with the police, they faced challenges due to the lack of detailed information about the man's appearance. Despite their efforts, the murderer was never apprehended. Haunted by the possibility that we could have prevented the tragedy by contacting the police earlier, the most disturbing aspect emerged. The murderer didn't steal anything from the victim's house. The house remained untouched, suggesting that the motive was solely to take a life. It was a chilling revelation that the assailant harbored an inexplicable urge to commit murder.